morning. You join me from an airport, Stansted Airport to be precise, about to get on a Ryanair flight to Marseille, France. I paid $19.99 for this flight. I'll put that here in the corner, probably that one, with dollars and euros so you can see. Weather check. It seems to be quite a grey day here in London. Spin around, there we go. Quite a grey day here in London. We've had lovely sunshine for weeks and weeks, so this is a bit of an oddity, but back to normal British weather. I'll catch you up when we get to Marseille. Marseille Airport, weather check, lovely. Let's recap the day then. So we started off with early morning flights, Ryanair from Stansted. They were $19.99, just under £20, so nice cheap flights. Flights were good, 3 babies on board, but it was a quiet flight, surprisingly. We got here, got the bus from the airport to the town centre train station. That cost €8 each way. Best to buy tickets online because there's a queue for the tickets and a queue for the ticket machine and for the bus, so you don't want to queue twice. So you kind of want to get in that queue as soon as possible, because we were standing in the queue for probably an hour. 3 buses filled up in the time that it took me for the joining the queue to get to the front, so not a quick system, but affordable. Then I went to the central station and got a 72-hour travel pass, so that's buses, trams, underground. I was aiming for the week-long one, but you need a passport photo for that. So a printed passport photo, because they make a photo badge up for it. I didn't bring one of those, so I just went for a 72-hour for 10 something. I'll put it on the screen. This is not as good as the passport photo one, and in principle I'd be better off if I'd got a passport photo then and then bought the €15 one, than I would be paying for 2 €10 ones and the ferries, which were included in the 15 but not in the 10s. So, but it's not a massive difference. I'm talking 5-10 quid difference, so not the end of the world. Then I got the underground 2 stops to the port. That's interesting. It's not as good as London Underground in any way, but it gets you from one place to another. And then I walked from the port down to the first beach, the city beach, and then I caught the bus 83 using my 72-hour pass up to where I am now, which is, I'm not entirely sure. I'm near the big wheel, so I'll have to look on Google Maps and see where I've got to. It's a bit windy today, but quite hot. Plan for the rest of the day, so I'm going to carry on along the coast a bit to get to the big wheel, and then I'm going to have to get a couple of buses back to the main town and then possibly the underground to the hotel. I don't think I can get in before 3. It's now about 2:30, so I'll probably get back about 4 or 5 o'clock each time, and then check into the hotel and go find food somewhere. Okay, room tour. So this is the room. I have a double room, so I've got 2 beds. They're separate mattresses, but I think they might be joined together, the bed frame. Let's have a look in the bathroom. So we have a shower and a sink and toilet. No bidet. We have a little telly on the wall. And let's have a look at the view. Not great. I don't mind that. You don't pick this hotel if you want a view. So what's the plan today? Okay, so I had a lay-in this morning because I did far too much walking yesterday. Then I got a tram, an above ground tram from my hotel down here to the History Museum, Museum de Histoire de Marseille. So this is the local history museum. It's quite a big museum. Then after this one, I'll probably find something to eat around here, proper meal, because I haven't had one of those since coming here yet. And then I'm going to go to the Natural History Museum and the Art Museum, again on the tram. You join me outside the Museum of History for Marseille. So this museum featured the history of Marseille going back from the very start, like kind of prehistory, all the way up to the modern day. Well, not quite the modern day, but to the 90s. It's based outside of the archaeological dig for the old port. There used to be a different port to the one that's now in place, and it used to come inland here. Obviously it's now full of soil and it's just ruins, but it was excavated and they located a couple of old ships which are remarkably well preserved considering they're only made out of wood. It kind of, up to a certain point, you build ships, and the largest ship you could be would be determined by the largest tree you had. So you canoe and you'd hollow it out, and that would be your sea-bearing vessel or river or lake-bearing vessel. But they have demonstrated in there how they used a peg and slot method, using wooden pegs and slots, so it's remarkable they've remained, to connect pieces of wood together. The museum also shows an extensive collection of burial procedures. So you have stone coffins, cremations, and even a terracotta coffin, which I haven't seen anywhere else. On the first floor, there's stuff on pottery production. It was interesting to see how the kilns were constructed before the modern invention of kilns. They were brick or stone kilns with a false floor, and underneath the false floor they would light a fire and then put the pots they were trying to fire on the first floor, and that would heat up the pots to the temperature to bake them so they became solid. There was lots of pottery discovered with lots of urns and plates. On the second floor there is more modern stuff, so we have the industries they went through, the plagues they went through, the wars they went through, all very good. It's a nice modern museum. It's nice flat floors, good lighting. To access the museum, it's a bit odd. When I came in, you have to go through a shopping centre. I think it might have been I came in quite early, and you go through the shopping centre and then down. The museum itself is free, or I didn't have to pay for it, including lockers. I had my backpack with me, and it's not a massive backpack, but still they wanted to put it in the locker, but they were free, so it wasn't a massive issue. Lunch with a view. Yeah, I stopped off at shop, picked up a salad. Yeah, it was good lunch. Pesto, pasta, pine nuts, tomatoes, yeah, it was vegan, so I thought it's a nice safe option. It's I don't know if it was expensive or not. I paid about €6 for it, um, and it was a relatively small portion for that price, but it was nice. So next up on the agenda is to go to the Natural History Museum and the Museum of Art. Both of them are a tram ride away, so I'm going to have to get the tram. There's a church here I might pop into first, so I'll do that. So I've just come out of the Natural History Museum in Marseille. It's a good museum. It's quite old, like Victorian style, with the wooden cabinets with glass in front of it. It's a mixture of skeletons and taxidermy. I think it was a good museum. It's all in French, but that doesn't bother me. On the first floor, there's a old Victorian room full of low tables full of specimens. It's the best bit of the Victorian museum architecture, was those rooms full of specimen tables where someone's dedicatedly looked for the specimen, identified it, catalogued it, and then labelled it and put it in a glass case. Across the road on the other side, over there, is the Museum of Art. I'm going to go over there in a minute and have a look around that one. I didn't have to pay anything for the Natural History Museum. I was expecting to pay about €10 for it, but I didn't have to pay anything. I don't know if it's because it's today or because I'm a tourist, but I didn't pay anything for it, so no more budget's been spent. I'm going to go up to the top of the water fountain, see what's on the top there. I think it's some gardens up there. Yeah, some gardens. They've turned the fountain off, so you might have a better chance of hearing me this time. Just come out of the National Art Museum in Marseille. It was good, not as big as the big city museums like London, but it has some decent stuff spread over a couple of floors. I think my favourite is the work documenting the aftermath or the active destruction of Marseille as part of the 1720 plague. So that was the bubonic plague that reached Marseille despite their strict quarantine rules, trying to prevent it. That's really quite a powerful work in light of what we've been through recently. And I also particularly like the picture painting of the offloading of the ships. I'll put the name of the artist and the image on screen so you can see what I'm talking about. I thought that had so much detail. You had the workers in the foreground, you had the ships themselves, and then you had Marseille in the background. So I think it worked well on multiple levels, and it was the right size. It was a large painting, but it was proportional to what the image was. So I thought that was a really nice painting. I haven't got much video in there because it's mainly dark for the photos. So we've got some stills which I'll show. I was expecting to pay for this one as well, but I didn't have to. Every time I go in, they say, "Where are you from?" And I say, I'm from England. And they say, "Free." And I go, "Okay." So I don't know if it's free for English people or free for tourists or free today, but no more cost was incurred. It's now coming up 4:30. So I think the next plan is probably to go to the supermarket and find some food for tea. I think I'm going to go a bit further out to Marseille, possibly on the metro, to get to a supermarket that's a bit bigger than the Aldi and Lidl that I have been going to. Day 3. This is Cassis. So started off the day, recording this at the end of the day, hence why I'm hot and sweaty. Started off the day getting the underground metro to Central Station. That was included in the 72-hour pass, so no more money's been spent yet. And then I got the train from the Central Station to Cassis. Took about 25 minutes. Cost me €8.40, so about £7 something. I'll put it on the screen. Then I got the bus from the Casius train station, because it's about 3 kilometres from the train station to the actual beach resort. So you probably do need to get the bus. I'm hopefully going to get it on the way back. But I spoke to the person, I asked for one ticket and he charged me 90 cents. So what's that, 70 pence? So a very cheap ticket, well worth it if you're trying to come this way. Cassis is nice. It's a more traditional beach resort town with the waterfront and the marina and the restaurants. It's got a couple of beaches. I went to all 3 of them. You can walk further along the coast to get to there's a natural harbour which is further along the coast, but if you walk along the coast, along where the beaches are, you end up at the wrong side of the water. So you can only walk so far. You have to kind of walk inland and then around the bottom of the natural harbour and then back out again to get down the path that everyone seemed to be walking down. I ended up on the wrong side of the water, so I didn't walk all that way because you had to have to double back and then go out again, which was too far. So I spent most of the day sitting on beaches. Lunch was just some sandwiches from a shop, so nothing fancy. There are restaurants here, but I'm not fussed about food, so I think I'm going to start heading my way back to the train station now. Trains run about every half an hour back to Marseille, so hopefully I'm going to catch one of those. I haven't bought any tickets yet, but I can get it on train lines. So I'm going to buy it probably on the way, probably on the bus back, because they're like one ticket for one train. I'm going to walk back through town. The town, when I got here, there was a market on. I don't know if it was a specific day, it's market day, or if it's a market every day. It's now Wednesday, so I don't know if Wednesday's market day or not, but it was a mixture of traders for local people and tourist traders, so you have the stuff they're selling to the tourists themselves. It was good, didn't buy anything, but it was good. So I caught the bus back up to the station, bus 01. They run in time with the station, with the trains, so they know when the trains are coming. There's a train every half an hour, so they run on a similar schedule. But they don't leave much leeway. I didn't want to buy my ticket before I got to the station because I didn't think we were going to make it. And if the train was on time, we wouldn't have made it. So when I got to the station, the train was delayed by about 10 minutes. I thought, oh great, I can get the ticket on Trainline now on the app. But the app wouldn't let me pick the train because it said the train already left, even though it was delayed. So I went to the machine and that wouldn't let me do anything either. It was a different system to the one in Marseille station. This one had a jog wheel rather than a touchscreen, which made it a lot harder to get through. But the train's there every half an hour, so I've got about 10 minutes left until the train comes, so it's not a big problem. If you visit Marseille, it's well worth a visit here. The trains are every half an hour from the central station, so it's easy to get to the central station. It's on the metro lines, so you can get on basically any metro station and then they go to the central station. I got the early train out about 8:30 this morning and it was quiet. The trains were quite empty at that time. They gave me the full day here. I think the trains run continuously all day, even into the evening. So if you do want to make a full day of it and have a meal here, you can. There was a couple of beaches. The town beach, which I thought was nice, but it didn't have the views of the secondary beach. But the town beach had all the facilities where the secondary beach didn't. So, but I spent most of my time on those two beaches, and then I walked to the natural harbour, which was quite a walk, particularly in the heat. But it is a pretty place. Okay, I'm outside the Cathédrale La Major, so the major cathedral. It is a grand cathedral. I don't know if I'm going to be able to film inside, but the steps are absolutely huge. There's a nice water fountain at the bottom, non-drinkable, but must be, what, 8-10 feet at least above the street level just to get up the steps. I was on my way to the Museum of Mediterranean Culture, which I'll get to in a minute. But I thought I'd stop off at the church first, the cathedral first, and have a look round. Well, that was a grand church. It was well worth a visit. It was free to enter, but they do ask you to be respectful. So no beach clothes. It's an active church, so they ask you to be quiet. So hence no speaking inside the church. But most people were following those two rules, so it was nice in there. It's free to enter, which is good for the size of the churches. In other places around Europe and in the UK now, big churches and cities you have to pay to get into. But this one's still free, so it's well worth a visit if you're on the way around this area. I particularly liked the tomb of the Bishop of Marseille. It was a nice peaceful place. You can see over there the Museum of Mediterranean Culture, which is where I was heading. So it's quite close by, where it is walking along the port side of the city. I was expecting it to be a bit more rough and run down, but it's quite nice, loads of bars and restaurants. So now we're heading to the Museum of Mediterranean Culture. So this is the new museum that was created in 2013 for Marseille's European City of Culture. It's I think number 1 or number 2 on the most recommended things to do in Marseille. I'm expecting to have to pay to get into this one, so I'll see how much the tickets are and then let you know. So you join me back in my room. It was far too windy by the end of the day to do any more talking to camera. You walking around that area, you struggling to walk, matter, record audio. So I'll give you the catch up now. I went to 2 museums in the end. I went to the Museum of Mediterranean Culture, and then I went to the Cave Museum, the Conquest. I'll put it on the screen what it's actually called. So the Mediterranean Museum of Culture was good. It was €11 to get in.
They were very strict on camera equipment going in. I don't know if it's because I had so much camera equipment, but they were stopping other people who had like selfie tripods or smartphone gimbals. They were being stopped as well. I had to check basically all of my camera equipment into a locker before I could go around the museum. So hence why there's very little footage of me walking around it. I thought the museum was okay. There was 2 permanent exhibitions on the ground floor and 1 temporary on the first floor. There's meant to be 2 temporaries, but the other one is being renovated. It's being changed to a new exhibition. The ones on the ground floor focused more on modern culture than it did on old culture. They tried to move away from the colonial history of museums, which is what a lot of other museums focus on. All the artifacts we collected, the European countries, and then brought back from around the Mediterranean and around the world. So they're more focusing on modern things, and they identify this in the museum to say that that's what they're trying to do. Also included within the ticket of the museum was a tour around access to the fort on the other side. There's a high bridge, not good for if you're afraid of heights, over the water from the museum over to the mainland, to the fort, which you can walk around, and then they've got an exhibition in there. And that exhibition focused on henna tattoos or henna culture, which is the drawing on your hands or drawing on your body with those inks, which was interesting. A lot of it was in French, but I understood bits of it. Well, after that, I got some lunch. I think I spent about €10 on that, just from a supermarket. And then I went to the Cave Museum. I can't remember the name of it exactly. The Conquest, I think it was called. And this is an interesting museum, but it's quite expensive. I thought the museum was too Disney-fied. The Cave Museum is a recreation of a prehistoric cave which is in this area. The cave itself, the real cave, is in a waterlogged passage, so basically you have to scuba dive to get into the cave. And they've recreated it, so they've scanned it and then recreated it in like a ride fashion, where you're on a little cart and it goes round the cave, and then it gets pointed out what things are while you're wearing headphones so you can hear them. I thought it was too much like a Disney ride though, so I felt they tried to exaggerate and say, oh, this is this and this is this. The artists did a good job. If you suspend belief, you could believe that you're in a real cave, but it didn't feel right. It felt too fake. So it wasn't the best. But it was okay if you wanted to do it. I watched the documentary years ago when they built the place, and I thought that's a cool idea because it allows this to be recreated and you can interact with it. But I thought it was too staged. It didn't feel authentic. After the tour on the motorised vehicle, you walk around and they've got an exhibition on how they made it, how they recreated the cave, which I thought was a good thing, so that people could see how it was done and compare it. And then there was a dramatisation movie about the exploration and finding the cave initially. As I said, it was an underwater access, so you have to dive down on the edge of a cliff face and then up through a narrow passageway to get into the cave. The cave is famous for its handprints and charcoal drawings. So these are early handprints of many, many thousands of years ago from our history, which is nice to see. But I didn't think it was quite worth the money. I paid €18 for this, and I thought it was a bit overpriced, but considering it's a new exhibition and it's a new museum, and the amount of work that they needed to build a whole building and this whole set, it's quite understandable why it's more expensive than other museums. But I thought it was not quite right for me.
Okay, tea tonight is pasta and couscous and vegetables. Same thing I had for lunch actually, or very similar. I picked a store in town near the harbour, and it seems to do food that I can eat. I can't eat a lot of food. I can't eat lactose. So when I do find something I can eat on holiday, I tend to just stick with that. I don't really care for eating. I just have to eat because otherwise I die. So I just eat for the sustenance rather than the pleasure.
So I've been here in this hotel for 4 nights now. I think the hotel is quite good. It's a 2-star hotel, so I'm going to be reviewing it as such. I paid this much per night, so that's kind of where my expectations are. It's a hotel mainly targeted for young people. There's loads and loads of, I wouldn't say school children, kind of their 15 to 18-year-olds staying here on school trips. I often bump into them in the elevator. I think the beds were comfortable. They were good. They're quite soft, but they were comfortable. And the facilities worked well. The showers were hot all the time, so there's no complaints there. On one day, when I came back to my room, there was a smell of bad drains. I reported this to reception and asked for my room to be cleaned. And the next day I came back, after I'd been out, I came back and it was fine. So the receptionists are very helpful. They speak enough English to be to have a good conversation, and they understand what you mean and you understand what they mean. So that's good. There is a full kitchen, as it's kind of it's kind of a hostel hotel combination. There's a full kitchen for you to use downstairs. I used it a couple of times for the microwave, but there's an oven and there's a fridge and a freezer. Is there a freezer? There's definitely a fridge. And that's a cool concept. So if, as the others who are staying in groups, they've been having meals down there. So I've been down there to use the kitchen, and they've been like cooking pasta for a group of 18 or something like that. So it makes it cheaper than having to eat out all the time.
Okay, last update from the trip. So this is day 5. So what did I do today? I went to the Notre-Dame Church first. So that's bus 61 up from the harbour up to the church, and then the bus back down again. The church was nice. It's a pretty gilded church. It's nowhere near as big as the grand church I went into earlier in the week. And it was a lot busier. I don't know if it was busier because it was a smaller church and there was the same number of people, or there was more people, probably a bit of both. The church is free to get into, which is good. And the views from the top, you get great views all around the city. So it's well worth the trip up on the bus, so I wouldn't walk, it's a long way up. After that, I got the 83 bus out to the beaches, and I visited a stately home, or it'll be a palace now in France, which had been converted into a museum. So you had a couple of rooms which were stately home rooms, how they were when there was a stately home or palace. And then the other rooms had been converted into museums. So there's a temporary exhibition on the ground floor which looked at blue clothing. Well, I suppose that was the overarching theme, particularly on denim clothing. And on the first floor there was painted crockery, so painted plates, bowls, both in the pictorial fashion with pictures and decorative. That was free to enter, so no additional cost there. They did not let me take my camera around, so I had to put that in a locker, hence why I haven't got any photos of it. If you're down that way, it's worth a visit because it's situated in a lovely park. So if you go down to where the Ferris wheel is and where the bus drops you off, instead of going to the beach, go left inland, and then it will lead you to the park, and then within that park is this stately palace. So it's worth a visit. It was very quiet, apart from the school kids. There seems to be school field trips to all the museums all the time, and I seem to run into them. After that, I sat on the beach for a bit because I've been feeling a bit under the weather, being the last day, and then back to the airport. So I got a late flight out tonight, 11 o'clock, but it was 22 quid, so it was priced to timing, and I got the full day. I was in Marseille up to about 7 o'clock, 7 p.m, and flight's 11. So I had plenty of time, but I didn't feel like I needed to do anything else. I'm quite tired now. So I thought I'll just come to the airport a little earlier and wait around here. The EasyJet and Ryanair terminal, which is Terminal 2, is a lot smaller than the main terminal. So there's less stuff. There's a few shops, but there's not a huge amount to do here. So I'm looking at the maths. I think I'm about £500 all in for the holiday. So that's flights, hotel, transport, transfers, food, events, activities, so everything. I think that's quite good going for about £100 a day.